Vienna, late summer 1933, where an Englishman wanders into the wrong century. The Englishman came from another planet, looking, no doubt, for adventure, a cause to believe in, comradeship, affection, love, sex. His luck, he found someone who dyed her hair so often she was no longer sure of the original color. Me. We were roughly the same age. He was 21 and fresh from university when he made his way to my flat in the center of the city. But any resemblance between our lifelines ended there. I was half Jewess and half not, with the two parts of my identity in constant conflict. I'd been a Zionist, fighting for a distant Jewish homeland before I joined the Communists, fighting for Austrian workers nearer to hand. I'd been married and divorced when I discovered that my husband preferred to sleep in Palestine than with me. Once I'd even been thrown into an Austrian jail for 2 weeks for my communist activities that came to the attention of the police. I'd been caught letting my spare room to a certain Josip Broz, who turned out to be a Croatian communist, wanted in 6 Balkan countries. He would hold party meetings in my apartment, pointing to one or another of the comrades and giving them assignments with the words, Ti-to, you dead. He did this so regularly we nicknamed him Tito. My stint in prison wasn't wasted. I discovered that, for want of a mirror, a girl could see her reflection in a cup of coffee well enough to apply lipstick, without which I feel unprotected. Despite my arrest, my clandestine work for Moscow Center had fortunately gone undetected. You could make the case that I was at the opposite end of the spectrum from a Vestal virgin. I had taken lovers when it pleased me to take lovers, but I was careful to keep an emotional distance between us, which is why they invariably ended up becoming former lovers. The truth is, I'd never really been intimate with a male of the species before the Englishman. Intimate in the sense of taking pleasure from giving pleasure. Intimate in the sense of feeling that waking up mornings next to a stark-naked Homo erectus was an excellent way to begin the day. Ah, the Englishman. You won't believe how innocent he was when he appeared on my doorstep. Handsome in a timid sort of way, painfully unsure of himself. Suffering, I later learned, from chronic indigestion, talking with an endearing stammer that became more pronounced when the subject turned to social or sexual intercourse. I could tell right off, girls are born with a sixth sense for body language. He'd never gotten laid, at least not by a female. Whether by a male is another matter entirely. Late one night, when we could hear artillery shells exploding in the workers' quarter across town, the Englishman downed a schnapps too many and told me he'd been buggered, as he put it. I never did discover if this initiation took place at one of those posh British boarding schools that don't light grate fires until water freezes in the faucets, or later at Cambridge. I happened to have had enough intercourse with the King's English, not to mention the King's Englishman, to know what buggered meant. Forgive me if I don't share the details. I'm rambling. Oh dear, I do ramble when I talk about the Englishman. Yes, I was saying that, sexually speaking, he was green behind the ears when he fell into my life. I would have been surprised to learn he'd ever set eyes on a young woman's breast, much less touched one. He certainly didn't know how to unfasten a brassiere. When we finally got around to sharing a bed, which was 10 days after he moved into my spare room, it quickly became apparent he had only a theoretical notion of feminine anatomy. But, to his credit, in sex as in espionage, he was a quick study. "Where did you learn to fuck like that?" I drowsily asked him the morning after that first night. "You bloody well taught me," he said. "Your orgasm is on my lips. I can taste it." This, friends, turned out to be quintessential Philby. Kim to his mates, Harold, Adrian, Russell to the upper-caste English swells who happened by our table to sponge cigarettes when we took tea, as we did almost every afternoon, even in winter, on the terrace of the Café Herrenhof. But I skip ahead. The tale is best told chronologically. Try to imagine my stupefaction when, responding to a knock so tentative it was almost inaudible, thinking it was the Negro come to deliver coal, I opened the door of my 3-room flat to find a young gentleman shifting his weight from foot to foot in excruciating uncertainty, a rucksack hanging off one lean shoulder, a small but elegant leather valise on the floor next to his swanky, albeit scuffed, hiking boots. My first fleeting thought was that I was in the presence of someone who had wandered into the wrong century. He had the soft, pink cheeks of an adolescent who almost never needed to shave, dishevelled hair with the remnant of a part in the middle, wrinkled flannel trousers with a suggestion of a crease, frayed trouser cuffs, pinched by metal bicycle clips, a belted double-breasted leather motorcycle jacket with an oversized collar turned up, a beige silk scarf knotted around his throat, motorcycle goggles down around his neck, a worn leather motorcycle bonnet, the kind someone might have worn when motorcycles were first invented, hanging from a wrist. "There is no number on your door," he said, "but as you are between 6 and 8, I decided you must be 7. I worked my fingers through my freshly minted blonde page boy to see if the chemist's peroxide was still damp. "What were you hoping to find at number 7? I demanded, laying the foundation for the emotional wall I meant to raise between us. My visitor, speaking English with the barest curl to his upper lip, said, "I was led to believe I might be able to let a room at Latchgasse 9, apartment number 7. The more he stammered, the more I saw my emotional wall crumble. "And who led you to believe that?" "One of the comrades at the Rote Hilfe Alliance that assists persecuted refugees." "What brought you to Vienna?" "My motorcycle brought me to Vienna. I took the liberty of parking it in your courtyard next to the rubbish bins. I am not inquiring about your mode of transportation. I am inquiring about your motivation." "Ah, motivation." I remember him shrugging in confusion. I was to discover that clichés irritated him, the more so when they spilled from his own lips. "Vienna is where the action is," he said, "or will be. I came to do my part." I thought about this. "Are you saying you rode a motorcycle all the way from England to do your part?" "Not counting the Channel. It's only 900 miles, give or take." He favoured me with a shy smile. "If I may be so bold, what about you?" "What about me? Why are you in Vienna?"